We need to talk about weed in the UK. Rishi Sunak has recently been calling for decriminalisation, but the government says it's not budging, citing concerns of links between cannabis use and mental health issues. But the conversation is missing a few crucial truths. For years, people have argued over whether cannabis is harmful or harmless, but the truth is, it can be both. I've personally used cannabis for 20 years and have studied it for 10 years, and I think we need to be more honest about weed, especially here in the UK. Let's start with what is true. Cannabis is a powerful medicine that really helps people. It can ease pain, anxiety, and depression, and potentially help treat some more serious diseases like cancer. It can also unlock creativity, facilitate social bonding, and enhance relaxation. Used intentionally and responsibly, it can be a highly effective tool for health, wellness, and self-awareness. But here's the thing, THC is a powerful compound that can have profound effects on perception and brain function, which means that when it's misused, it can cause problems. You see, weed is strong these days. We've had strong weed here in the UK for decades, but now there's Cali weed, carts, edibles, and concentrates, and these products weren't common or didn't even exist when I was growing up. Plus, they're now easier to get than ever. When I was young, you needed to know a guy, and you would get what you were given, whether it was Northern Lights or Moroccan hash. But now you can order whatever you want from the internet, social media, or even those stickers you see plastered around towns and cities. As well as more potent products and easier access, we're also seeing more frequent use, more daily habits, and more all-day smoking. And for a lot of people, that's where the problems start. Because 20% of cannabis users develop what's called cannabis use disorder. CUD is defined as having 2 out of a number of symptoms, like unsuccessful efforts to cut down, spending a significant amount of time obtaining, using, or recovering from cannabis, or having cravings. Now, there's a lot of argument over what CUD actually is and whether it's useful, and at the end of the day, it is just an arbitrary label. However, labels can be helpful, even if we know that there's going to be exceptions to the rule. So when you have research showing that 1 in 5 cannabis users will experience problems that would qualify them for a cannabis use disorder diagnosis, we should take note. Because research also shows that 1 in 10 users develop a serious addiction, leading to significant impairments in their lives. I'm actually one of those 10%, and I have a healthy relationship with weed now, but for most of my adult life I have struggled to control my use, and it has given me significant issues. But just like most people can drink alcohol or eat fast food without any problems, most people can also use cannabis without any problems. But that doesn't mean we should ignore the risks for those certain people that will develop problems. Speaking from experience, here's what heavy, chronic cannabis use can lead to in some people. Poor emotional regulation. Things like irritability, anxiety, paranoia, and even depression. Mental numbness. Things just don't interest you like they used to, and you lose that spark for life. Withdrawal symptoms. When you stop using weed, things like insomnia, headaches, anger, weird dreams, and night sweats are all common. Cognitive issues. THC can affect memory, attention span, and decision making. Social withdrawal. Being stoned can make you feel awkward around others, so you isolate yourself and end up smoking more. And the younger you are, the higher your risk, because your brain is still developing, and heavy use at this stage is linked with a thinning of the prefrontal cortex, reduced brain connectivity, and an increased risk of mental health issues. Now let me make something clear. Weed doesn't cause psychosis or schizophrenia. Studies have linked cannabis use and psychosis, but correlation isn't causation. In fact, there are many studies, including some on twins, that show both early use and the heavy use of cannabis are simply more likely in people with a vulnerability to psychosis and schizophrenia, which suggests they're actually self-medicating with cannabis. Having said that, research does suggest that cannabis use can act as the stress trigger that pushes a predisposed person over the edge into psychosis. So to sum it up, most cannabis users never develop problems with their use or any serious mental health issues, but 20% will experience problems and 10% will get addicted. And young people and those predisposed to psychosis are at a greater risk. So how does weed work? Your body has its own endocannabinoid system, the ECS, which is a network of receptors and natural signaling molecules that regulate mood, memory, pain, appetite, sleep, and plenty more. You find CB1 receptors in the brain, and CB2 receptors are found peripherally around the body. Now THC mimics these natural signaling molecules, or endocannabinoids, and binds to CB1 receptors in the brain. This unlocking alters signaling in your brain, affecting neurotransmitters like dopamine, GABA, and glutamate. And lots of CB1 receptors are found in areas of the brain responsible for reward, memory, coordination, learning, impulse control, emotional regulation, and sensory perception, which is why medium to high doses of THC reliably produce sensations like euphoria, increased appetite, memory disruptions, altered sense of time, slowed motor function, and impaired concentration. So now, knowing that THC has all these effects on the brain, does that mean weed causes long-term brain damage like some people say? Not quite. There's little evidence of irreversible brain damage from cannabis use. Yes, structural and functional brain changes have been found in long-term users, but whether this translates to brain damage or increased risk of brain disease isn't proven. But what's clear from the research is this: heavy, chronic use of high THC products, especially from an early age, can impair memory, learning ability, reasoning, attention span, decision making, language, and impulse control. So what do? Cannabis can heal, cannabis can also harm, especially in certain people in certain contexts. Both of these statements are true. With that in mind, cannabis should be legalized, because prohibition doesn't protect anyone. It pushes its production and supply underground, increasing risks to consumers. What we need is sensible regulation and a focus on education and harm reduction. Here's what that could look like in the UK. Access to products with different ratios of THC and CBD and other cannabinoids like CBG and CBN. Cannabis education, especially for teens, about things like different cannabinoids' effects, safe consumption methods, and dosing. Honest talk about mental health and addiction and strategies to improve these conditions. A ban on marketing to under 21-year-olds, and more research into minor cannabinoids, consumption methods, and low doses of THC. The fact is that prohibition hasn't worked, cannabis is still everywhere, and it's not going anywhere. So we need to start acknowledging reality and using a common sense approach to regulating it in order to reduce the risks of harm. As someone who has experienced cannabis addiction, quit, relapsed, spent years researching the plant, addiction and harm reduction, and now has a pretty healthy relationship with weed, here's what works for me and for many others. Low doses of THC. Low doses of THC can give you all the benefits of THC without the negatives. I'm talking a single puff on a joint or a dry herb vape, or less than 5 milligrams in oil, tea or edible form. Use CBD. CBD balances out THC's effects, helps regulate the endocannabinoid system, and offers a host of benefits like reduced anxiety and inflammation. A healthy lifestyle. Combining weed with things that enhance your life like music, movement, meditation, socializing, journaling can turn a harmful habit into a life-enhancing one. Lastly, take breaks. Even a few days off can help you reset your tolerance and reduce the chance of negative effects. These tips are tailored for recreational users. They may also benefit medical users, but if you're using cannabis for health reasons, it's best to follow the approach that works for you. So cannabis isn't the problem. Chronic, unconscious, high-potency use is, and prohibition only increases these risks. We need honest conversations about weed in the UK. We need sensible policies, and we need to stop pretending weed is either a miracle or a menace. It can be both. But whether it's used to harm or enhance is down to the person using it. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to my newsletter for more grounded, science-backed takes on cannabis, health and plant medicine in the UK. And if you or someone you love is struggling with cannabis addiction, check out my book, Overcoming Weed Addiction, on Amazon. It's affordable, practical, and full of tools that can help you reset your relationship with cannabis.